Welcome to Cultivated Live for Wednesday, September 17th. I am Jay Rosenthal. Oh, that was weird. Oh, hold on. I'm getting my own feedback. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Sorry, everybody.
Oh.
Are you getting my own echo? Oh, no, someone else had it up on their screen.
Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, good.
Do you have the stream open somewhere else?
No.
Oh, I do. There we go. Now we're better. Sorry, everybody. Let's run this back. I am Jay Rosenthal. That is Jeremy Burke. In the middle is Rick Schepp from RYTHM. And we're going to talk THC beverages today. And just because it's Wednesday, I'm going to say that I'm not Team Jer, even though I love you, Jeremy Burke. I am neither Team Conrad. I'm Team Benito today. If you get this, what I'm talking about, kudos to you. You have teenagers in your house watching the summer I turned pretty. Rick, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here with you guys.
That was a rocky start. Our apologies on that. It was clearly my fault. Getting my own echo back to me. You come from a beverage background, adult beverages, let's call them broadly defined. Is there another category or something in your memory that you know about in your long history of work that is anything like let's call it the explosion of THC beverages across the U.S.?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I talk to a lot of people out, whether distributors, retailers out in the market. And, the most common parallels I hear are typically craft beer, as that really started to take off. You saw a lot of brands come in. The shelf was confusing, not quite clear on which products should I be reaching for. So I hear that comparison a lot, but I also hear comparisons that say, this is actually nothing like that. It's way, way bigger and way more different. And people equate it more to the entrance of Red Bull and the energy category coming in, which obviously those are, two bounds of, what this industry can be. But, for us, what we see is the consumers are reaching for it. So anytime we're looking at a category and we're not trying to make it happen, the consumers are trying to pull, that's exactly what we look for. And, whether it turns out similar to craft beer, which obviously is a very large category to this day, or more like an energy drinks, the consumers clearly want this, and it's going to continue to grow, very rapidly moving forward.
Yeah. And so, Rick, RYTHM launched beverages this week. Could you talk to us a little bit about the products, about what you're excited about, and where our viewers can find them?
Yeah, absolutely. So RYTHM Drinks is our second brand that we've launched. Our first brand was Senorita THC Margaritas. But our RYTHM Drinks, we just launched this week. We've rolled them out in Illinois and New Jersey about a month ago for an early launch. And these drinks are really created with the intention of cannabis and the different strains and products that people reach for on the regulated cannabis side. We saw that as an opportunity to say, how do we bring that into THC beverages and help consumers understand how they'll feel? So our approach with RYTHM Drinks was first starting with really high quality ingredients and flavor first. That's kind of our no compromise area. And then beyond that, we said, how do we craft drinks that have clear effects? So with that, we created one energizing beverage, which we named Sativa, which replicates, as you might guess, a sativa strain with a little bit of that energizing effect with a small amount of natural caffeine in that product. And then a second SKU that's more relaxing called RYTHM Kush, which has CBD and L-theanine to promote more of that wind down relaxation occasion. So we just rolled them out in 5 and 10 milligrams. We will have a 25 milligram offering coming soon for those markets that do allow for the higher dose. They'll be on retailers kind of across shelves in our 15 markets over the next, rolling out now over the next month or so. But some of our bigger retailers today are Binny's, ABC in Florida, Total Wine and More, and Circle K is rolling out across a number of markets. So, we're excited to keep the dialogue going, bring RYTHM into those accounts where we already have Senorita and introduce these to the public.
Can I ask a question? Because what you just said, I want to dive into sort of consumer behavior. Because what you said on the energy drink side, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but it seems like people probably have their go-to energy drink that they buy on a regular basis. I don't know if people switch between Monster and Red Bull, whatever that is. And then on the craft beer side, I feel like people try a bunch or will bring a multi-pack with a bunch of different flavors, different brews. Like, do we know yet, or is it too early if people are like, are they going to be RYTHM drinkers forever, or are they going to have RYTHM and then Señorita, like, are they going to go across the category as well? Is it more craft brew or is it more energy drink in terms of consumer preference, or is it too early to tell?
I would say today, too early to tell. What we see is that, as consumers come into the category, oftentimes they'll try one product. That's their comfort zone. So they might stay there for a little bit. But what we see is very quickly people say, this is a massive shelf at most retailers that they're buying these. What are all these other products? So we do see consumers trying a lot of different products. There's a wide range of, types of drinks as well as, ultimately quality out there. So what we see is consumers trying a lot of different things. As they find things they like, we see those consumers keep coming back to those. That does give us a little bit of the confidence of that, brand stickiness. But what we see today is variety packs are a big driver of the category because it's a great way for consumers to grab one product, try a few different flavors without committing to a 4-pack if they don't have singles, of each different flavor. So we actually just launched our variety packs as well, which we're excited to bring to market for exactly that occasion. People want to try different products. If they like one flavor, they want to know about the other, 3 flavors of Señorita. So variety packs are definitely big. And I think we'll see what that stickiness is and how quickly that comes in as people are trying to understand, yes, what is this product? What is the category? What are brands and what are flavors? There's a lot for consumers to take in right now.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So Rick, I want to sort of get a sense of how internally you think about marketing these products, right? Because in the broad universe of what a THC drink could be, there's different strains, there's different compounds, like you said, L-theanine, different flavors, different potencies. So how do you think about the market and how do you decide which products to bring to market first? And is this sort of trial and error or what is that process like internally?
Yeah, it's a great question. We spend a lot of time looking at broader beverage trends as well as what's going on in the THC market today. Zooming back to going back to our first brand, Señorita, that was a brand that we actually just found when we were trying to try every product that was out in the market. We absolutely loved the flavor of it. So, we made a call to the founders of Señorita and, very quickly found a great marriage where they wanted to join our team, but they wanted us to build the brand, build out the team and do all of that. So flavor was really the first driver of Señorita. As we said, this is the best thing we've tried. This can be a great part of our portfolio. Then as we started to think more broadly, we very quickly saw the disconnect between the cannabis side where exactly what effects you're going to get, or that's a big focus of marketing on the cannabis side, and hemp, which is oftentimes, here's a drink. It's a different flavor, but what is that difference in effect? So that was really where we kind of started of, identifying that trend and saying, okay, now how do we build from there? Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, it was really about how do we create the effect that we know from cannabis? You can't use all of the same compounds. You can't use a live resin or rosin that brings in, all of the terpenes, but how do you replicate that effect, through what we can do in THC beverages and hemp-derived in particular. So that was really our focus. On the flavor side, we tried a lot of different flavors and did a lot of consumer sampling and said, okay, what really jumps out to people? What seems different, unique, a little bit special? And that's really what ultimately drove, our flavor selection, which on RYTHM, the sativa is a mandarin orange. It is carbonated, so sparkling mandarin orange. And then the kush is a mango pineapple. And both were just crowd favorites that we couldn't ignore and said, all right, well, those will be our first 2 SKUs because clearly, they're resonating with the consumers from day one.
We actually have a question that came in through YouTube. Can I put it up on the screen?
Sure.
Because I think it's actually pretty good. It came in from El Guapo Tron 4000. That's probably not that person's real name, but big fan of effects-based formulations and marketing. Does the target consumer know what sativa and kush mean, though? It's a good question. Are those effects sort of broad-based enough, or I don't know if that's broadly defined, or for people looking for THC beverages, do they know those things going in?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back a little bit to it's a little too early to tell because still, who is the THC consumer? A lot of people have perspectives, but A, there's not one consumer, and B, it's evolving, every day. So, for us coming at it from RYTHM, RYTHM is a brand that's been around for a decade now on the cannabis side, and has a lot of cannabis credentials. It's the number one premium cannabis brand in the world. So we thought about, okay, well, how do we bring that into this category where a lot of the consumers are not cannabis consumers today? And, what we said is, okay, well, we want to be a beverage first product and business here. We're not trying to be cannabis in beverage, but instead we want to be beverage and bring some of those cannabis credentials through. So one way that we did that is the nod with the name of sativa and kush. But around that, we know that everybody does not know what sativa or kush or indica means. They might have heard it, maybe not. But that really then becomes that marketing push of how do you explain the effects beyond just the name. So, we really highlight, energizing beverage for the sativa, relaxing THC beverage for kush, and then try and pull that through all of the marketing assets. So when you look at a kush display, it should feel a little bit more calming, whereas the sativa has a little bit more of that energy effect. So you really have to pull it through kind of every touch point. But I think it's totally fair to say not every consumer in THC beverages knows cannabis. Maybe they don't even care about cannabis. So you have to be really intentional about building for this market first, and then think about how you tell your story in an authentic and credible way.
Yeah. It's quite striking. I want to sort of go back into your sort of beverage history. Like it seems where we are today versus even where we were like a year ago when it comes to THC beverages, like it is much more on the radar, obviously. And we have conversations, happening in Texas, happening in Missouri, where, there's the legal cannabis conversation around sort of regulated markets like New York and others that, are doing their thing. And then the sort of THC beverage market, which is far broader geographically and even maybe from a consumer base. Like, do you ever reflect, like, this has been a wild year, maybe a year and a half of like expansion of a category, consumers entering it, distribution, acceptance by some of the big stores you just mentioned, like, they might have been doing that in Minnesota a year ago, but now there are many more markets. Like it's been quite, it's shelf space, it's distribution, it's consumer acceptance. Like it's been very fast. And interestingly, I think, not under the radar, because that's certainly not the case, but just now people are starting to say, holy, this is like billions of dollars of economic activity that maybe we didn't even know, we weren't planning for, didn't know about, and now we're adapting to.
Yeah, I mean, I have that moment basically every day where I'm like, wait, I can't believe, I'm here talking about selling THC beverages and some of the biggest retailers in the country. Earlier this year, we were at a conference in Georgia and we had asked, hey, can we do infused sampling or does it need to be uninfused product? And the word we got back was, well, hey, this is a faith-based organization based in Georgia, so they'd prefer not to have infused products. And that was just another one of those times where I didn't think we'd be talking about THC in Georgia, period, much less working with whether it's faith-based groups or any sort of retailer group that previously were never thinking about THC, but now they see the opportunity, they see that consumer demand, and really people can't help but follow it. Because the consumer's voting so clearly. But I will say to your point, over the last year, it's been, not just the last year, but it's been its continued growth where a year ago, a lot of the bigger alc bev distributors were not in and not willing to carry these products. Today, that's still the case for some distributors, some markets. But what you see is in most markets, the big Anheuser-Busch or Miller, Molson Coors networks are leaning in, and they're seeing this as an opportunity to, keep their trucks full and, ultimately meet the consumer need that maybe they moved away from alcohol, maybe they're taking a break, consuming less, or they just weren't an alcohol consumer. You're bringing them a new option that, pretty much everybody through the full chain, whether it's distributors, retailers, consumers, are seeing that upside. And yeah, it's crazy how fast it's moving, but I still every day talk to somebody that I know. And when I explain what I do, they're like, wait, I can buy a THC drink at Binny's. I'm in Chicago. So, it's still, for as big as it is, those of us who live it every day, there's still a massive opportunity for people who still have no idea that it exists or how it could fit into their life. So there's still a lot more runway, but it has been a wild run.
Well, I was telling before we came on that I was in Nashville over the summer, and I live in Canada. We've had legal weed for, I don't know, it's not been a decade, but it seems like a very long time. It's very normalized, but I've never seen it on a menu at a restaurant or a bar. And we were at a music venue, and on the menu was a THC beverage, right, in Nashville. I was like, this, and I took a picture. I sent it to Jeremy on our Slack channel.
Yeah.
Like that does more to normalize cannabis use writ large than I think almost legalizing does in Canada has. And I wonder, sort of big picture, and maybe it's too soon. It's still another too soon to tell, but does this lay the groundwork for more people entering the cannabis space? Are THC beverages sort of the easiest entry point, both from a product category, but also from how people are purchasing them outside of mostly dispensary channels?
I certainly think so. From my just personal anecdotes, my little sister would never try, any of our products when I was on the regulated side. I offered her everything, but nothing would quite get her over that line. But then when I had a senorita at Thanksgiving, she was like, "Oh, let me give it a try. Tasted good. Great.
Best Thanksgiving ever."
Right. And so that brings people in that didn't think THC was for them. Maybe they had a bad experience on edibles, like pretty much everybody seems to have. But we see people saying, okay, yeah, this is something I'm willing to give a try. It's very approachable, very easy to access. Everybody knows how to drink, beverage out of a can. So we see that really normalizing this. And certainly, those of us in the cannabis space know that there's a lot more to cannabis than, THC, CBD, the basics, right? And so I personally think that a lot of consumers will come in, realize that there are great things here that can really fit for their life, and then say, what else is there? Maybe it's an edible or a vape, different occasions or different products. That I think it just normalizes THC and says, hey, this is not some scary, unknown thing that only happens on the corner, behind closed doors. This is something that is approachable for everybody.
Rick, I want to pick up on the product innovation question again. And I know it's just sort of a personal interest, but from your job running the beverage division at RYTHM GTI, how much innovation is coming from within versus how many smaller beverage brands are you looking to acquire, or is it a combination of both? I know that's probably of particular interest to our viewers, so would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I can't go into specifics on the M&A side. But, we're always open to talking to any brands, wherever they are in their life cycle. And we keep a very open door because, like Senorita, we weren't necessarily looking to go buy something, but
that's why I asked. Yeah.
So, by and large, we're really focused on, developing our brands, ourselves and continuing to build that portfolio. But we never say no to anything, and we always leave those doors open because there might be a brand that would really complement the brands that we have. And that's really what's going to be important moving forward is how do you have an intentional portfolio? Just having 10 brands doesn't necessarily help you. It's hard enough to build one brand really well in beverage, much less 2, 3, 5, whatever that number is. So we want to make sure we're not, just a race to create new brands because there's plenty of brands in market. But how do we find the right brands that can either tuck into our portfolio or we can bring to introduce, into any white space gaps that, we know we have and are continuing to look at.
I envision a gigantic whiteboard with like every beverage ever with like a magnet attached to it, and you put them on the wall, like sort of like a draft, like drafting players in the NFL. But like flavor profile, potency, geography, like it's all these intertwined Venn diagrams too.
Yeah, probably, maybe it's Beautiful Mind, but it's probably more like the Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like it's all connected.
Yeah.
It is interesting. It is interesting. And actually, I think the sort of laying the foundation of this conversation sort of in what the category is or what it may be versus what it is and where sort of it's going. Is it energy drinks? Is it microbrew? Is it something sort of a third that we haven't even thought of yet where people do have their go-to, but also willing to try? I think it's all fascinating and happening in real time. And I hope that we can continue to have you on, Rick, because I think it is an interesting conversation and one that is rapidly developing, both from a brand, flavor profiles, consumer perspective, but also from a regulatory perspective. And I think it's, Jeremy and I think it's fascinating. And if nobody else does, they're just going to have to listen to these conversations anyway.
Yeah, that's great. And if we talk again in a week, there'll be new things to talk about. So there'll be no shortage of things to hit and cover. But yeah, it's fascinating, rapidly developing, and we're excited to be a small part of the overall category. Well,
we appreciate the time, and thank you, Rick. Thank you, Jeremy. Team Jer, to wrap this up. Summer I turned pretty. We appreciate. We'll continue with you again soon, and thanks everybody. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.